Hi, I'm Thomas Desmond, developer advocate at Sitecore. In this video, I'll show you how I used React Server components in the new Next.js app directory architecture to maximize the amount of static code and server-side rendering in a dynamic commerce application. The new Next.js architecture allows you to easily take advantage of mixing static and dynamic content on the same page, all while leveraging the power of the server. I chose to use Sitecore OrderCloud on the backend to show off how commerce can take advantage of these features, and in the end, I'll show you how you can get started with a free OrderCloud account. Let's see how I built out an application with Sitecore OrderCloud to show off the functionality of mixing static with dynamic. First off, I want to talk about the app directory architecture. What does this refer to and why does it matter? The app directory refers to a new architecture for building Next.js applications. It's still in beta, but looks like it will soon be the recommended way to build with Next.js. One of the big changes in the app directory is that components are going to be React Server components by default. A React Server component is a component that is built entirely on the server. These components leverage the server infrastructure, leading to faster page loads and smaller JavaScript bundle sizes. You can create dynamic server components or static server components. I'll cover how to differentiate between the two later. But not everything can be done in a server component, so client components still exist as well. Client components are anything that require client interactivity. For example, useEffect, useState, or onClick. I have two blogs I'll link below in the description that go into details about React Server components and client components. Also, if you want to hear more about the app directory, I do have a first impressions video that I'll link on the screen now. But the server components feature of Next.js app directory will be the focus of this video. I set out to build a commerce application with Sitecore OrderCloud to take advantage of the new app directory architecture and the ability to mix static and dynamic server components. So what is Sitecore OrderCloud? OrderCloud is Sitecore's API-first headless commerce solution. It supports B2B, B2C, B2X, so you can have whatever commerce solution you need. In this app, I set out to tell a B2B story, business to business. It's common when selling business to business to need different pricing strategies per customer. For example, let's say that you have a rewards program with different customer tiers, and you want to give a discount based on that customer's tier. You have a gold tier customer, the highest tier, that you want to give a percentage discount that you wouldn't give to your silver tier customers. This is a common scenario. OrderCloud handles this really well by setting up different price schedules depending on the buyer. But how do you support this on the front end? This sounds like dynamic content. But it's the same products, the same product images, descriptions, and reviews. Just the price is changing per buyer. When you hear the word same for each customer, you should be thinking static. But now we have this dynamic price component as well. How can we most effectively mix static and dynamic content on the same page? That's where the new app directory architecture comes in with Next.js. It allows for easier mixing of dynamic server components and static server components on the same page. So let's jump in and take a look at how we can use the new architecture, React Server components, and OrderCloud to build out the B2B commerce story. Right now, we're looking at a file in VS Code that's built with the new app directory architecture. You can see on the left-hand side that I'm building out my application inside of the app directory. The app folder is similar to the previous pages directory in that it uses folder-based navigation. You can create any number of subfolders, put a page.tsx in them, and now you have a new route. But let's explain a little bit more about what goes into this app folder. The required file for any route is going to be a page file. You need to have a page file at minimum for any route. The page file defines the UI that is unique to a route. Required at just the root level is a layout and head file. The layout file is used to define the layout that you want to share across multiple pages. So the root layout file is what you want to share with your entire app. Layout is required at the root level, but deeper route segments can optionally define its own layout. The head file, also required at the root level, is used to configure what you want in the head tag section for a route. It's required at the root level and optional throughout other segments. Now, two files that are optional at all levels are the loading and error. The loading file displays when in a loading state, and the error file shows when in an error state. And the closest error in the route tree will display for a given route if there's an error. But let's take a peek at the page file. That's where all the good stuff happens. Again, this is where you define your UI, but it's also where you do data fetching. This is where we determine what is going to be static data fetched once and dynamic data fetched with each request. Looking at the two data fetching methods here, I have getProductImages and getProductPrices. And keep an eye on the cache property passed as an option to fetch. The cache property determines static or dynamic data. The top method, getProductImages, has force cache. And this is the equivalent of getStaticProps. Whatever you fetch in here is going to be cached and served statically. So pages that only have force cache are considered static pages. My bottom method, getProductPrices, has no store. No store does not store data in the cache, refetching the data with each page load, the equivalent of getServerSideProps. Routes with no store are considered dynamic routes. But this route has both. Is this a dynamic or a static route? Well, it's a dynamic route because of the no store fetch call, but looking at the documentation, for dynamic rendering, during a static rendering, if a dynamic function or a dynamic fetch request, no caching is discovered, Next.js will switch to dynamically rendering the whole route at request time. But any cached data requests can still be reused during dynamic rendering. What does this mean? With the extended fetch API that Next.js is using, you are not limited to gathering only static or only dynamic data for a page. You can fetch with no store and fetch with force cache on the same page. Next.js is smart enough to not refetch data from force cache and will use that data retrieved at build time that was in the cache. So the method getProductImages is called once at build time, and we're caching that data and not making that call anymore even when new subsequent requests come in. We're only calling getProductPrices. Let's take a look at the page that this code is creating. So here I've got a basic homepage for my commerce app. I've got a few products, and I've got a marquee at the bottom. For the homepage, I'm using this ability to serve images quickly because they are a part of the force cache call, and then the small black rectangle component I'm using is a dynamic data pulled from OrderCloud with each request. I have super speedy static content and a small dynamic portion on the page. All that data is being fetched on the server. The client still needs to download that data, but the bulk of the work is being done by the server. Now let's see the dynamic portion in action. I've got these pretty login buyer A and login buyer B buttons in the top left, and right now we're logged in as buyer A. If I click login as buyer B, we're not going to see anything happen, but in the back end, I'm logging in as user B, and now I have a new token for this user B. If I refresh the page, we can see that the black hat price changed from $6.99 to $17.99. I've got new pricing based on who is logged in. The images are still being served from cache to buyer B, but I'm able to have that small dynamic component that shows off using static and dynamic in the single page. I can go back logging in as user A, refresh, and you see we have $6.99 as the new price here. So I'm able to serve that static content, these big bulky images, I'm able to serve them statically, and then just have this small component calling out to OrderCloud with each request to see what is the price for this product. Now, normally the fetch to get pricing data might be done on the client side, but we're taking advantage of the server now, and in this case, Vercel's CDN network to deliver that content to users as effectively as possible. We're reducing JavaScript on the client and improving page load speeds. On a small page like this, it's difficult to measure, but with hundreds or thousands of products, the benefits can add up quickly. So this is a B2B story that we're telling here with the new Next.js architecture. You can take advantage of React server components to serve static and dynamic content on the same page. We've got those static images and then dynamic pricing. What's another scenario you could use this for? This could also be a commerce story B to X, having mostly static content on a page, but using a product like Sitecore personalize to show personalized content on one part of the page. Perfect for a product details page, showing off other related products that a buyer might be interested in. Having a bunch of static content, but this small personalized dynamic piece. Anytime you see yourself looking at a page and seeing content that will be the same for every user, consider taking advantage of Next.js and the force cache fetch to fetch that data only once at build time and serve that cache data for all other users going forward. Again, if you're going to have content that's the same for every user, why not fetch it once at build time and serve that cache content throughout? Want to try out OrderCloud for yourself or check out the code I've shown in this video? I have a code repository linked in the description below. There you can clone the code and take a look at it. The OrderCloud instance that is associated with my repo has a lot of custom changes though to represent the two buyers and the price schedules for each buyer. So unfortunately at this time the repo is not plug and play for you to use with my repository, but you can easily get started trying out OrderCloud and run your own experiments for free by going to ordercloud.io and signing up for a free account. The OrderCloud team also provides a CLI to seed your project with data so that you can start experimenting faster with OrderCloud. I'll link the CLI in the description below. But if you like this video, please leave it a like and subscribe to keep up with more content like this.